Oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh man, oh woman, oh woman, oh woman, oh woman, oh woman. Oh, this is 20 years of moderating. This may be one of the most incredible moments of my moderating sessions. And that is, I got to bring someone I've known for over a decade onto the show, and I got to bring her onto the show, and the rest of the world is getting to know about her, and she still agreed to come on, which is amazing. And I'll let her tell you about that in a minute because this was the week her book Lift actually launched. Lift launched. That's kind of a saying. And so you can get it on Amazon, you can get it anywhere else. I've already read it. I read a pre-copy. I felt so guilty I got a free copy. I actually ordered a copy of it.
Aw,
And you're probably thinking, well, this is a women's health discussion. Yes, it is, but a women's health discussion is also a men's health discussion. So we thought every
damn
company
right.
PCRI, right? We think, wait a second, what about all the caregivers? What about all the people taking care of these men, for example? And not even just that. I want to hear from anyone that's good. So every couple of years, we would shake it up. For those of you who have been around the PCRI for a while, 10 years ago, I remember I invited a top-notch bone health expert from Georgetown University. She's been a friend of mine for a long time, and she gave a talk on women's health and osteoporosis. And so we decided to shake it up again and bring my good friend Anne Marie. And Anne Marie, I'm not even gonna give you an intro. I want you to give us a minute or two, if you don't mind, on how you got here and how this came about. I know this is a weird moment, but I'm going to give you plenty of props during our discussion. I want you to give your own intro, and then I'm going to add or delete to that when you're done. Is that okay?
That's great. That's great. And
Okay.
before we start, I just want to say thank you so much, Dr. Mark Moyad, or Triple M, as I like to call you, for having me on this. I have known you for, like you said, for over a decade. I was a longtime reporter for the Wall Street Journal, 27 years at the Wall Street Journal. And you were one of my go-to sources on my various food supplements type stories throughout the University of Michigan. And some of our greatest hits, I'm trying to remember, we did a story on collagen
Yes.
in food. We did a story on vitamins and supplements, I want to say, the
You
best.
did a lot on that.
Yeah, yeah.
You covered one of
And
my early books.
it was always a joy to speak with you. We had a very fastidious fact checking before publication. I remember this, very fastidious, and just hilarity and joy. And I'm just, and what I think is funny too is that I've known you for so long, and you have a deep aversion to Zoom. When Zoom started happening, I think this is actually the first time I've ever met you face to face. So this is a lot of
Maybe.
fun. I've always known the voice, but this is the first like live action version of Dr. Mark Moyad in AMC. So this is great.
Thank you. I am a shy person, but I think you saw pictures of me, and I think,
Yeah,
I
that's
have to
right.
put, I'm all red now because that's like an introduction
Aw,
to me. That's very
don't be
sweet.
red. I love it.
Let me say something back that, like I said before we even came on today, I, it's not just about strong women in my life. My wife, my mom, who came to this country with nothing, with my dad, who
No,
knows 6 languages fluently. I mean,
no.
you,
I love
Alex,
that. My parents were
Alex, this young
immigrants
person
too.
who runs a PCRI, a prostate cancer group. She's in her 30s, and I'm going, what is she doing? And all of a sudden, we realize she knows what she's doing. And, we're bi-directionally learning. So what I do want to say is you continue your introduction for the audience because we decided this was going to be the one presentation over 20 years. There are going to be no slides. We got rid of all of our slides. This is going to be a discussion and then an exercise demo.
Hmm.
At the Wall Street Journal, I will say, and I don't think I ever told you this, that I was lucky enough to do interviews for all the major networks, to appear on all the major networks. But one thing I could always count on with Anne Marie, and you have to pronounce your last name for the audience because I've messed it up for at least 20 times in 10 years.
No, no, it's okay. It's Chaker.
Chaker, see, like
Yep,
Chaker.
yep.
And so I call her AMC, Anne Marie Chaker. And so AMC is the nickname. So of all the media sources, the reason why when she emailed me, I always answered her is that every time I read her articles in the Wall Street Journal, It was every time it was objective. It wasn't sensational. It wasn't about selling a product. It was so refreshing to hear someone just look at the data, get a bunch of interviews, and even if she thought I was full of it, she would call it out. And I just loved your objectivity. And that's why I always answered your calls. I'm not saying the other media outlets didn't have objective reporters. I'm just saying that sometimes you would do an interview and somebody would spin it in a way that would sell a product. And that was started happening too much, but it never happened with you. So to the audience, she was the best health reporter I had ever dealt with in my career. And I thought the best health reporter of the Wall Street Journal for sure. Can I say that? I hope I'm not upsetting anybody. And that's why it was so smart to bring her on today as she tells you her story. How about that? I've never told you that, but that was what really
Oh.
attracted me toward your emails. I just knew you were going to write an objective story that always took care of the patients, that always took care of the public, that told them the truth. Woo!
I am so
That's an
honored. You
Oscar
never,
speech, right?
oh my God, you never told me that
No,
before.
I
That's
didn't tell
so
you that, but
great.
I was so tired of people selling off my interviews or my name or putting on a back advertisement to an interview. And I thought, Anne's not selling anything. She just wants to get her audience to know the pros and cons of whatever it is, collagen, you name it. And you did such a good job. And that's why I'm sad that you left reporting, but I'm also happy that you're doing what you're doing. So tell me what you're doing now, even though I know, and tell me why you're here. I mean, of course, I know why you're here. Tell me your backstory and how this came about, which just came out, and yeah, take a couple minutes for that, and then I may interrupt if you don't mind.
Sure, sure. So that book was born of a time of struggle in my life. I had my second child and was really suffering from postpartum depression. I had lost my father a couple weeks after my daughter was born, suddenly of a heart attack. My marriage was crumbling. So a lot of tough stuff happening in my life and was drinking a lot and you know, not healthy. I was not, exercising and very out of shape. All of this came to a head when I took my daughters on a trip and we were staying in a hotel, and inside this hotel was a little fitness room. And I poked my head in and saw this mom who was just crushing her workout. She was lifting barbells and pulling bands and doing things that honestly I hadn't seen since I was in a college weight room years ago. And I looked at her and she looked incredible. And I looked at myself and I thought, what happened to me? I had been a college athlete. I'd been a competitive figure skater growing up, and it just felt like that time in my life was a distant memory. I spoke with the woman and kind of started following her regime and got in touch with her coach, who was a retired bodybuilding coach. I started weightlifting, and it was this weightlifting that honestly changed my life. And I eventually became a bodybuilder and wanted to write this book to take people through this journey of transformation, how, this kind of down and out, single mom, newspaper reporter, struggling with a drinking problem, went on to competitive bodybuilding stages with, a fake tan and a sparkly bikini, flexing muscles, to really show people that transformation is possible and that, weightlifting is such a good thing to transform your life.
You're no longer at the Wall Street Journal, so now you're an author, and now you're going to be doing can I say some of these stuff? You're going to be doing a podcast. You're going to be all over the place. I mean, you're starting to be all over the place, but can we tell other people where you're going to be? I mean, we're going to have links to all of this on PCRI, but you've got, besides the book coming out, you got a couple other things coming out, right?
I've got other content, shall we say, entrepreneurial projects cooking. I'm not at liberty to say what they are, but stay tuned and
Stay tuned
follow
is
me.
good.
Yeah.
So yesterday I saw it, for the audience, she looks bright-eyed and ready to go. She's got some verve, but I'm surprised you're even here today because yesterday I think you had to go to New York and do the CBS morning show. Is that right? Was that yesterday?
Yesterday. Yeah. Yep. That was
Okay.
that was
And
fun.
that's a grind. right?
That's a lot. It was a lot. Yeah. You gotta, I live in Washington, D.C. Took the train in. It's very early in the morning. And, I'm not used to that sort of thing. So I was, kind of practicing what I would say and, very kind of, the answers have to be very tight. And, it's just, it all feels like chaos in this studio. And, but I'm so glad that I did it. It got so much reaction from the public. I forget how, when you're out there in the media, like people learn about you and they buy your book and it's all very exciting.
When media starts covering objective people, it makes me happy. So, all right, we're almost done with the beginning, and I'm ready for some of my questions for you.
Fantastic.
Let me just go through some items, okay? Here's a
All
quick
right.
quiz. Are you ready for the quiz?
Oh boy.
Okay.
Okay.
The first quiz is who was your favorite and most knowledgeable, valuable, game-changing, covert health information source when you were working at the Wall Street Journal all those years? Your choices are A, Dr. Mark Moyad, B, Dr. Mark Moyad, C, Dr. Mark Moyad, or all of the above.
All of the above.
Okay, correct.
D.
See, you're
Yeah.
1 for 1. That means you're entitled to a gift at the end of the talk.
Ding,
All
ding,
right,
ding.
that's the correct answer. All right. Then are you ready for this one? If that's the correct answer, then where was the Dr. Moyad shout out in your new best-selling, amazing, incredible, wonderful book, Lift by Anne Marie Chaker? Where was Moyad? I looked in this thing.
Oh,
There was no Moyad in
you
here,
know.
man. That's all right.
Oh, I'll autograph you a copy. I'm sure there's like other people that I
All
forgot
right.
to
So just in case
include.
you would have put me in, I would have endorsed it. Let me tell you how I would have endorsed this for the public. Because I read plenty of books. I get tons of books from authors that want me to say something, comment on them, pre-print and not. So this is what I would have said about your book, and then we're going to move on because the audience is probably getting nauseated by all the fluff going on back and forth between me and you. All right, this is what I would have wrote. Mark
Okay.
Moyad, circa right now. This would have been a blurb in your book.
Okay.
Although the book Lift initially appears to be a book for women to, quote, reclaim their physical power and transform their lives, end of the quote, I feel it is also a book for everyone. Not only does it call you to action, but shows you how to spend very little money in transforming your mental, physical, and spiritual health in a short amount of time. It's an inspiration for the ages and for all ages. Whoa.
Ooh, wow.
That's a mic drop. Is it mic drop or drop mic? I'll never figure it out. It's one of those,
Oh
right?
my God. I love
That's
this.
that's
This
my
is so
review. But
great.
you know what?
That is
That is
so
a
great.
serious review because the biggest problem with your book is the biggest problem I've had writing journal articles and all this.
Hmm.
There's no super pizzazz magic elixir. It actually just takes you through some of the work you have to do, right? It
Right.
doesn't promise that if you take this liquid overnight, it's going to transform your body. It's just good advice. And so that's why I wrote that blurb. So if you ever want to use that blurb, let me know. That was from the heart.
Oh, you're the best. Thank
Thanks. I
you.
feel like the best today. Anyway, all right. So we talked about your story. We talked about our history. I thought it was by the way, in case you haven't seen this, there's many, Billie Jean King, there are many people who endorsed it. Here's one of my favorite. I'm so pumped up that Lyft and AMC terminates. I love that. Outdated myths and shows that training isn't just about physical strength for women. It builds mental strength and has benefits outside of the gym. This book is a game changer that will open your eyes about female strength. Arnold Schwarzenegger,
Isn't that great?
same
Isn't that
area that my
great?
mom is from Austria.
Oh my God. Arnold to me is such a hero. He was a hero. My father was an immigrant, and my father loved Arnold. Just like the ultimate American story, came to this country, became a Hollywood star, became governor of California. I mean, what a life.
Wow,
What a
right?
life.
Yeah. No, so it was cool that you got some of
That
these.
meant so much to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I still think the Moyed quote was more powerful
It was really good. I might have to wallpaper my house with that.
So
Hmm.
I just want to comment on one thing before we move on to just the weightlifting topic. What do you say to people about that's weightlifting, but what about aerobic? Like I'm a runner. I did a long run this morning, and boy, it gives me a lot of strength. It gives me a lot of mental boost. But so, what do you say in terms of your book and in terms? I know we're just going to talk weightlifting. What's your comment on just aerobic exercise? Treadmills, ellipticals, running, pickleball. Not that I'm a big fan of pickleball. Sorry, everybody out there. But some type when young people ask you, and do you do aerobic exercise, or do you just primarily do weightlifting?
So I do cardio activity in the weeks before I compete, where fat loss becomes important. So we cut as bodybuilders in just the few weeks before competition day to achieve a stage lean physique. So that's, specifically for the sport, for the stage, we want to show muscles completely striated, and we get very, very lean. And then, when that competition is over, we refeed and we build back to a normal, more healthy layer of body fat. So in those weeks before competition, in the cutting phase, we do quite a bit of cardio for fat loss. But
Yeah.
there's nothing that can replace resistance-based strength training. It is so important for many reasons, which we will get
Which
into.
we'll get into, yeah.
Yeah.
So you do your aerobics. I mean, because how many competitions do you have to go to in a year?
I think of it more in every other year. I don't do it every year. It takes a lot out of you. So every like 18 months is usually like a good period in between competition seasons. So I will be competing again this year in August and September. And then I'll probably like rest up and build back for a year and then compete, you know,
Okay.
18 months after.
So then before we talk about the evidence behind weightlifting and everything else, I want to cover all the ancillary stuff about around weightlifting before we talk about it directly. In your book, you like to talk about, I don't know, I like to use the word diet. I guess I started using the word dietary pattern, the majority of what you do. That's become a very she word. Your
Mhm.
dietary pattern. So can we talk about some of the dietary thoughts you have? For example, I know you mentioned macronutrients and other things. I thought just the breaking down the very basics.
Yeah.
How do you even approach your diet and your dietary pattern and what you tell people as a weightlifter?
Yeah. So I eat very boring. And, I covered when I was at the Wall Street Journal, I covered food trends, right? So I saw it all.
Yeah.
Uh, um, the, you know, the maligning of carbohydrates, was big for a while. And then, these magical ingredients crept up. First it was like cauliflower. Cauliflower was suddenly in everything, and they were making pizza crusts out of that kind of went away. And then it was sweet potatoes became like this hero ingredient. You saw sweet potatoes and was going to like save the world. So I mean, I've seen, diet. Then I remember it was the coffee. Do you remember the bulletproof coffee they were putting?
Bulletproof. We did that story.
Was that a story we did?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
bulletproof.
great.
Anyway,
Great.
yeah.
It was so, hey, let's put butter in our coffee and you won't get hungry again until afternoon. Well, duh, you know. There was so much of this. I I think of bodybuilders think in terms of macronutrients. And the big three macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. I love to make my own food. I eat out very rarely. And I love eating well at home. You eat best when you make your own food, stock your fridge really well. I do my big shop on Sunday, another fill-in shop on Wednesday or Thursday. And I cook, and I cook simply. I do Tupperwares. So the carbohydrates I have are usually, either boiled potatoes or sweet potatoes and cooked white rice. And I keep that in a Tupperware in the fridge. I always have a big green salad on hand, and it can look like, whatever greens. I like bok choy, like shredded cabbage. It doesn't have to look like a traditional salad, but a big mishmash of greens in a bowl that everybody in my household kind of eats from.
Yeah.
And then my proteins, which are my greatest hits, are frozen bags of shrimp in the freezer. Um, and I love liquid egg whites, which I know sounds weird, but it's the liquid in the smoothies that I make. Um, they're pasteurized, so totally safe to eat raw. It's flavorless and it amps up your smoothies with a ton of protein. So liquid egg whites, I have cartons of them in the refrigerator.
Where do you
And
get those liquid egg whites, by the way?
any in the egg section, any grocery store will have liquid egg whites in cartons. So highly recommended. My smoothies are liquid egg whites, banana, and a scoop of like whey protein powder, and
Mm.
maybe for fats, a little bit of peanut butter in there. So delicious. So delicious. That's all. I always consume one in the afternoon.
And do you find them filling?
Filling and delicious and kind of energizing. Just a beautiful thing to consume.
And so, as your temporary, right now, unpaid manager,
Yes.
why can't I convince you to take your favorite smoothie that you make at home and then we can post it?
Oh, I'd be happy to. Yeah.
Because you've been talking to me about your smoothies for a year. And
Yeah.
I've thought to myself, I wonder why I haven't asked her just to give me the recipe and let us all try it, because I
Yeah.
know the nutritional content of it is pretty dynamite, and you said it tastes good. And so I'd like to find out if it actually tastes good. And so I just thought, I just came up with idea number one. I mean, you can think about it, but I think you should put together, you can call it whatever you want, call, AMC's, the Shaker Shake or something. I don't know.
I love that. You should
Thank
be
you.
my social media
I
manager.
should. I've done a couple interviews with celebrities and I've come up with stuff for them and they've said, wow, you should do my social media. So this is where I'm
Uh-huh.
thinking.
Yeah.
So the Shaker Shake just made for us. So that's cool. Did you go over all the ingredients or did I interrupt you? I apologize.
No, I think you got it.
Okay. What you said in the book, and I couldn't agree with you more, is carbs have been vilified. And the reality is some of our healthiest areas of the world are actually high carb diets. And what I think also people forget or we're not taught is that fiber is a carbohydrate. And everybody's telling me I don't get enough fiber. I'm not saying me, the world. And
Yes.
fiber does this, it fights this, it does this, it's heart healthy, it's gut healthy. And I'm going, well, why don't we call fiber what it is? It's a carbohydrate. So if the Mediterranean diet, which was just ranked number one by the cardiologists all around the world in my business, if it's such a great diet, why aren't we telling people it's very large in carbs? So I don't care if you call them good carbs versus bad carbs, but carbs, I think one of the points in your book in your diet section is don't vilify carbs. And I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I mean, about 50% of what we consume and should be consuming are carbohydrates. And, I remember eating with someone who said that they tried to avoid carbs and then they were eating a big green salad. And I was like, you're eating carbs. Which is so ridiculous, So
Yeah.
carbs is so much more than just potatoes and rice. It's in our vegetables too, and we should all be eating more vegetables. So just
Yeah.
stop with the blanket, vilify. We, as a society, I think we like to demonize things, or something is good and something is, but like we need to have like the magic pill or something to vilify.
Yeah, just once in a while when this stuff makes me wacky, I finally read something from one of the families of the individuals that created the blue zones. And there's blue zones get some criticism, but the reality is it's a really good way of teaching people. It's sort of the sum of what you do. Lifestyle makes a difference. And so they asked the blue zone person, what's the one food that you've seen consistently across all the blue zones that everybody eats every single day? And the answer was interesting. It was beans and lentils. And I thought, well, that's a carb. That's a carb.
Right.
So that was the one thing he picked of all of his research. I thought that was interesting. The other thing he said is you are who you surround yourself with. In other words, if you surround yourself by healthy people who push you, then you're more likely to become healthy. But getting back to the point, he was basically saying, why are everyone bad-mouthing carbs? Because wherever I go in the world where people have longevity, carbs form a basis of their diet.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you eat fast food ever? Please say
mean,
yes. Please say
I have
yes.
kids and they love McDonald's and there's there's nothing wrong with like or Chick-fil-A, some of their food. And when I'm there, it's fine as long as you're not eating it like three times a day,
Right.
it's important to have a life and food and fun foods are, part of the joy of life. So if I'm 8 weeks out from competition, no, I'm very careful, but in most of my normal life, I eat pizza with my kids and I eat the birthday cake. Sure.
Good for you. Good for you. I always tell this story when we're doing meetings that in my heyday, when I had to travel every week, I got to meet some of the top authors and people working in nutrition. And I'm not generalizing, I'm just saying some of the people I bumped into who would tell everybody everything that they put in their mouth makes a difference. And you have to only eat a certain way. And then I would go to dinner with some of these people, and I found out that they were some of the most stressed out, anxiety prone people I've ever met because their
Yeah.
entire
Yeah.
existence becomes about every single morsel that goes in their mouth. So we call it overanalysis leads to
Yeah.
paralysis. It
Yeah.
was just too much for me. And I felt like
Yeah.
it was too much for them. And it helped me back off in my career in terms of the rules. So,
Yeah. It's important to live your life. And, we, food is part of our social fabric. It's the way that we spend time together, it's the way that we make memories together. And, everything in moderation,
right.
as we say. And, you know, bodybuilding is a specific sport. And when I'm training, I have to be very careful. But then when the competition is over, I spend most of my life, in the off season. And part of that is, building and eating enough and making sure I'm eating enough protein and fueling my body. And having fun when I can.
All right, I love that too. I love that, but let's talk about a specific macronutrient that never goes away. It's constant. And you talked about this too. And this is protein supplementation. So you talk
Hmm.
about this is important for the audience. The recommended daily allowance is zero point 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. Another way of saying that is you're supposed to get 0.36 grams of protein for every pound per day. So you basically, if you weigh 200 pounds, you multiply that by 0.36 and you're supposed to get around 72 grams. If you weigh 125 pounds, that's 45. But the reason I'm bringing this up with you today is you talked about this a lot in the book, and I couldn't agree with you more that there is a real push lately to, as we age, that this number should be taken up higher. So I guess I have multiple questions here. What do you
Hmm.
think about this protein movement, and what do you think about the recommendations daily for protein when you're weightlifting?
Yeah. So if you're trying to build muscle, which we should all be, that number should be higher. And I can tell you that a good rule of thumb is to aim for a gram per pound of body weight of your ideal body weight, right? So generally, I think if you're for women, for anyone really, aiming for 100 grams or more is a great place to start. Um, and I weigh, around 120, between 120 and 130. So I try to get between 120 and 130 grams of
Wow.
protein a day. Yeah, which sounds like a lot, but once you have to use it, it's actually like, just make sure you're eating pretty lean. Probably that doesn't mean like 3 hamburgers a day, but for
Yeah.
instance, the liquid egg whites in the smoothie, that's going to help you a lot. The frozen bags of shrimp in the freezer is also going to help you a lot. Grilled chicken is another. We always, do grilled chicken tenderloins on the barbecue, and we have those in the fridge as easy protein. Turkey crumbles, another one of my greatest hits. I mix 93% ground turkey with 99% ground turkey in a pan. I get that brown. I usually throw a packet of taco seasoning, which you can get from you can put any seasoning you want in there. Um, Always have that on hand. The kids do that on tacos. I do that over salad or with rice or whatever. It's just so delicious, so easy. So some of those are some of the great, and with those, with the
Yeah.
combination of those, you can get a ton of protein in, and it's not that hard.
Let's go back to this. So we've talked about protein. You talked about increasing the amount of protein. From my conversation with you, it's obvious you're not vegan.
No,
So,
there was
so,
one half-hearted attempt years ago, and I will never go back. No.
do you have bodybuilders that, I mean, I've seen some people, sprinters, bodybuilders that are able to do the
Yeah.
veganism. Do you see that?
I've heard of them. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
don't know how they do it, but there are some. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, so it's an interesting movement that's there. Well, I've always said I think it's a beautiful movement. I'm not capable of adhering to it. It's just not.
Yeah.
And as I get older, I find that we're all moving that a certain direction anyway, more plant-based. But the idea of going fully, I'm a weak individual.
Hey, have you tried that cellular meat yet? Have you tried that?
It's so funny that you mentioned that. So I've talked to some of my vegan friends. My son is vegan, and so is his wife. And so they have this cellular lab-based meat, right? That you're talking about, and they sell it in Singapore. And I used to have to go to Singapore for work a lot, but I never got a chance to taste it. The answer to
Hmm.
your question is, I'm very excited about the lab-based meat movement because it would solve a lot of issues.
Right.
I have not tried it. However, I've looked at the numbers, and I thought it was going to come out in mass format in the next year or two, and it looks like it's so badly delayed that we're looking at years and years away still because of
Oh,
cost.
really? Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
So I think
Oh.
it was the Wall Street Journal. I
Oh.
don't remember. There was a report, maybe Scientific American. The idea is that people are moving along, but the costs have been so much more than ever anticipated in terms of what they can produce
Hmm.
that, it was a year ago at this time, we thought it would be in multiple places, and it's not.
Right. Right.
It's a
It's
supply
interesting.
issue. They can't produce it and fast enough. It's too cost. So this is like anything. Do you remember I had the first Mac computer, which was gigantic, cost a fortune, and now I'm on what I'm on. I
Mhm.
think the same thing with lab-based meat. I think it's going to be a big deal for your kids and my kids. It's going to be, but I haven't seen it apart from Singapore. California's opened up the possibility to a couple of companies, two in particular. But that's an important question, and I think that's going to be an exciting change.
I'm
I
excited to try it. I bet it tastes I bet it's great. And
bet
it's
it is
funny that
too.
you say that because I feel like a year or two ago we were hearing a lot about it,
Exactly.
and we've stopped hearing about it.
That's right. That's because a lot of the startups have gone through the money. It's been very expensive, and
Hmm.
everything about it sounds great. It's just not ready for prime time.
Hmm.
But it will happen. It will be a great moment. But no, I have not. I've been really itching to try it. So we talked about that, and we talked about protein. So plant versus animal-based proteins, whatever floats your boat, right? And at the end of the day, I always argue, what we've tried to argue is that whatever your belief is, are you getting to goal with your dietary pattern? So I used to tell people that there are 5 B's when it comes to your diet and your lifestyle. And the 5 B's were, hey, is your diet moving you in the right direction in terms of blood cholesterol, blood pressure, blood sugar, BMI, body weight, or belly fat, and then your brain health? Do you feel mentally okay when you're on your dietary pattern? Are you happy? Are you miserable? And a lot of people, when it comes to diet, I have found the fallacy is diet sort of gets a free pass in the sense that everything else in medicine, you have to have an objective marker to tell you that you're getting healthier, right? Maybe it's the PSA in prostate cancer. Maybe it's an imaging test in breast cancer. Diet's the one thing where I don't care what diet you're doing and what makes you happy, but is it moving you to a healthier place? Like if you go to your doctor, are your numbers getting better or worse on your pattern? And so you see all people on all sorts of diets where the numbers get worse, and you see people on all sorts of diets where the numbers get better. I just wish people applied more of that kind of medicine to their dietary pattern. So, for example, if you were getting ready for competition and you were gaining an extra 10 pounds of fat before competition with your diet, and your cholesterol was going through the roof, or your blood pressure, or your anxiety, or mentally you weren't in the right place, that's a bad diet. I just don't think we're applying those principles enough. That's again, I'll get off my soapbox on that.
It's 80% of the name of the game. I mean, it is in the sport of bodybuilding and trying to shape body composition. It is like 80 to 90% of the name of the game is what you consume. And it's the hardest thing to, to zero down. I mean, my coach was telling me like anybody can go to a gym for an hour or so. That's easy. But controlling what you put into your mouth for the other
Yeah,
23 hours of the day, that's hard.
it's really hard.
So yeah. But
But
again, that level of precision is specific to the sport. You want to get it mostly right for most of your life, but without being like super, fastidious about
yeah,
it. Still giving
absolutely.
yourself the leeway to enjoy your life. And that's a challenge. That's a challenge. I would say the name of the game is keeping your foods as whole and homemade as possible and avoiding like junk in a box for the most part. I mean, the problem with that stuff, I don't know about you, I find it very, very addictive. And
Really.
that's, it's hard to stop eating that stuff. Once you open the
Sure.
bag of chips or the bar of chocolate, whatever, even the crackers, that stuff it's made to be addictive. That's the food companies want you to not be able to stop eating it. So, this sounds really boring, but unfortunately, it's the boring stuff that withstands the test of time.
It
Um,
does.
you know,
Exactly. Exactly. I couldn't say that any better, the boring stuff. So let's talk about something in diet that's not boring and tell me your stance on it. So I
hmm
decided to do a quick search before the interview. I
hmm
wanted to look at, we're not going into that section yet, but we're going into it soon. I looked at the
hmm
top three things people use or purchase in terms of supplementation when they're
hmm
lifting weights. And
hmm
in the top three was what I thought was in the top three, but one isn't necessarily a supplement in my mind, and that's caffeine. How do you
mm
approach how do you approach caffeine? Do you utilize caffeine for your workouts? Because some people really like it as a stimulant to get out there before they go running and before they lift weights. But what do you do?
Yeah. I do take a little bit of like a half a cup of coffee before I go out for a lift. There's all these energy drinks on the market,
Yeah.
and really it's caffeine. So you can buy one of those, I guess, or you can just if you happen to have a little bit of coffee at home, use that, which is what I tend to do.
So you use that before your workout.
Yeah, yeah,
I have found that's one of the more brilliant things to use before any sport. I used to
yeah.
tell some young football players, it's what I use right before I go running. It's what I use before a race.
hmm
That's interesting. And it's interesting you said the volume of coffee you use because I do find that if you go too high on the volume, then you want to use the restroom, right?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, for
Counterintuitive.
me, yeah. And I'm the kind of person I never finish. It's got to be the right level of hot for
Yeah.
me. And after
Yes.
like a few sips, like it's over.
That's fabulous. So caffeine as something in the diet you're a big fan of.
Yes,
That makes
I
me
am.
happy. Egg whites we talked about. The other thing I always find interesting too, sometimes we should call this, and I'll call this for other things, is that life is not binary, medicine's not binary. And what that means essentially is the other funny thing is when we talked about carbs, people sometimes look at insulin as a bad thing. And last time I checked, you need a little bit of insulin in order to build muscle because it sends. So I'm just saying that it seems like in our world, people want to say, yeah, all good or all bad. But in reality, there are these shades of gray all over the place. I guess that was the point there.
Absolutely. I couldn't have
Right.
said that better myself.
I don't think this gets enough attention. So I actually did my own video on it and it got a bunch of attention, which I'm happy about. And I wrote some columns on it. And I still don't think I'm talking about it enough. And you've brought it up in interviews, you brought it up in the book, you brought it up here. And that is in terms of weightlifting, life, working out, alcohol. Now, we know in the past year from the WHO to the Surgeon General, people have now vilified alcohol. And now we've gone from one or two drinks a day was okay to no amount of alcohol is okay. Fine, whatever that is. But I still think, I agree with some of that, that alcohol sabotages so many things. And I find it to still be one of the greatest drugs people use for self-medication.
Mhm.
So I don't know if you can comment or what the question is, but the idea of alcohol and fitness, I don't see those two as being achievable. But help me on that.
I don't drink when I'm, in the weeks ahead of competition. I cut it out completely. And I will say that I feel so much better when I do, no question. However, in my uh, those non-prep weeks when I'm off season, I do have a glass of wine with dinner once in a while. For me, a challenge is moderation, right? I think I'm a very sort of extreme person. Either I'm all in and like, or like, and so in my life in general, finding like a happy middle has been its own challenge,
Yeah.
and a thing that I strive for. So alcohol to me, I always keep that in mind. Like, I limit it. I don't, drink at home. It's when I'm in a restaurant. If, one or two glasses of wine, I'm good. And that's kind of the happy middle for me.
Yeah.
Um, how about you? Do you
That's the
drink?
same. That's why when I read in the book, I thought that's exactly what we've evolved to at my house. We don't drink at home anymore. I found that with my generation, whether I was in Florida, whether I was in Michigan, I found that as people were going in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, they were drinking a lot at home. I mean, you
Mm,
suddenly find yourself with more time as you're slowing down. And
hmm.
I feel like it became arguably the number one drug that I saw people succumbing to in all sorts of ways. And,
Yeah.
and it's easy because when you go out with friends. So a couple of years ago, my wife and I decided we're just not going to drink at home. I mean, I don't
Hmm.
remember the last time we drank it home, but when we go out with friends, we'll have a glass of wine, we'll have a beer, and I
Yeah.
really look forward to it. But it's even hard to keep that in control
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's fun to do. But there's no question that every part of my body from head to toe, if I can abstain from drinking that day, like I did last night, I was supposed to go out and I said, no, I got to interview AMC, I got to practice what I preach. I slept like a baby last night. I sleep
Yeah.
soundly when I don't drink. I don't get up and have to use the bathroom. And we know that alcohol robs you of your deep sleep. So it
Hmm.
helps you fall asleep faster, but the type of sleep you get is cheap sleep, I call it.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's not deep sleep, it's cheap
Right.
sleep.
Right.
And we know it helps put on the weight. I mean, it really helps put on the pounds,
Yeah. Yeah.
changes your cholesterol. We know there's a linear relationship today between alcohol and blood pressure. The more alcohol you drink, the more your blood pressure cranks up. In fact, I always find it interesting that every diet book or any now the new books on blood pressure, one of the first recommendations is stop all alcohol, and someone goes, "Wow, I lost 10 pounds." Or, "Oh, my blood pressure came down 5 points." That's because you stopped all the alcohol.
Yeah.
So I just think people need to reevaluate. I've had to reevaluate. My wife and I have had to reevaluate, and we landed at the same place you talked about in the book, that I'll go out and have some for celebration. You've talked about some of the most fit women that you've read about that they'll use alcohol to celebrate after an event. I think there was a marathon runner you talked about from Ohio, and she's in her 80s or something or 90s. And that's all I have to say about that, unless you got anything else. I just think it's the elephant in the room. It should come up on every discussion of fitness and dietary pattern because it's a part of diet.
Yeah, it's an individual decision. And again, what we talked about before, like we're such a society of like, this is good, this is bad, that sort of polarization. I think it's important to, uh, if you're going to allow something, allow it in moderation. And what that does is it, for me anyway, it really kind of opens it to this is special. This is a treat. I'm going
That's
to
right.
enjoy a beautiful glass of wine with my partner at dinner, and I'm going to enjoy that. And then I'm going to call it a day. And, at home, if I had it at home, we would lean toward like, make, and I just didn't I don't keep it at home anymore. Just don't want to have it around.
No, I think that's real. I think that's critical. So the video that I did was called ABV plus V equals WTF, and
That's good.
it was my way of shouting back and saying, "Don't you understand what's going on here? When you have a drug manufacturers like to concentrate that drug in order to increase the risk, the chances, in my opinion, of addiction. I don't care if it's sugar, I don't care if it's fast food, I don't care if it's caffeine. So what's happened is there are all these
Absolutely.
craft beers now. When I was a kid and we snuck beer, it was 4%, 5%. Now it's 8 and 10%.
Yes.
So you crank
Yes.
up the calories, you crank up the alcohol by volume, and suddenly what you have is more weight gain, more health issues, increased risk of cancer. And what you have also is much more concentrated alcohol, whether that's a wine glass used to be this and now it's this. A shot used to be 1.5 ounces, now it's two, 2.5. And it creates a situation where alcohol becomes, that was what the video was about that struck a nerve. It was, hey, look what's going on here. I know it's fun to drink a 9% beer, but it comes with a cost. That was all I was trying to say. You
So
know, I,
interesting.
I know a
Yeah.
concentrated caffeine drink, everybody loves it, but it comes with a cost, and that is your body wants more and more of that
Yes.
concentration the next time. And
Yes.
and the withdrawal that you see from alcohol is scary. I mean, just the withdrawal symptoms, but again, you
And
mentioned
as you get older, you really feel it, don't
you
you?
feel it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
metabolically, people forget that when it comes to drugs, it comes to caffeine, it comes to anything. As you age, metabolically, things become more challenging to essentially get rid of and eliminate. So
Yep.
the half-life becomes longer and longer, things sit in your body.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
alcohol, man. So
It's a toxin. It's
toxic.
called intoxication for a reason.
Yeah, I mean, I love it, but I can't love it too much anymore. All right, you ready to
Exactly.
talk about some one or two supplements and then do the demo?
So I take a multivitamin, I take calcium, and I take fish oil. I don't, you and I have not talked about, I don't know
You
if
haven't?
that's, have we talked about fish oil?
I don't know. We talked about so many things that I just kind of figured we talked about everything.
So those are the ones I take. I'd be interested in what you think about that.
What I used to tell people is I still do. I would always just walk through, just let someone tell you what they take. He said multivitamin, calcium, fish oil.
Yep.
Why do you take a multivitamin? And it's not sarcasm. It's not trying to be I'm not trying to humiliate someone or be condescending. I'm always curious as to what got them to that point, and then it helps my thinking in terms of the
Okay.
education. Why did you end up
So
taking multivitamin?
I just think it's something that just a security measure to make sure I'm getting all my vitamins. I don't know.
I think that's a good point because as we get older, so this is the multivitamin I take. I have no affiliation with this company.
Okay. Hmm.
It's the only one that's gone through a phase 3 clinical trial 3 different times at Harvard. It just finished up. It was called the Cosmos trial. I talked about it in the supplement handbook, the book I did a long time ago, because it was accumulating so much evidence as a cheap, high quality, evidence-based product. And then people got mad. They said, you must work for Centrum Silver. No, I don't. But there are other good supplements. I said there's plenty of good multivitamins, but if it was me, I would compare my multivitamin to theirs in terms of what's on the label because this has gone through such rigorous testing. Anyway, what they found in people my age, a little bit older, was it helped cognitively. So if you start to watch more TV lately, which I'm doing in the summer, if you look, Centrum is now saying improves cognitive health, which is highly unusual. It's highly unusual for a supplement to make a cognitive health claim, and they're allowed to do that because of this massive Cosmos trial of men and women.
Wow.
It found that it slowed cognitive aging by 2 to 3 years on average. It was tested 3 times by Harvard in this big trial. It was tested in person, it was tested on the phone, and then there was web-based testing. All three of them surprised the researchers. That's why if you go type in Harvard, Cosmos, Centrum, most of them are now endorsing it. They're saying somebody should take a multivitamin daily. So that reason alone, I think, is a brilliant reason to take a multivitamin. So I'm glad you're taking a multi. I don't know if you have any questions, but that's where I am on the multi. It's as hot as ever before. People then hold
Wow.
it to this ridiculous standards. Some physicians will do this. Well, it hasn't been shown to prolong your life, and I'm going, wait a second. if I found a pharmaceutical agent that cost 3 cents a day that slowed cognitive aging by 2 to 3 years, we'd all be talking about it. Whether
Hmm.
it helped you live longer or not, if it improved that level of quality of life, everybody would be talking about that drug. Why are we now
Hmm.
holding it to the standard that it's got to make me live longer? I don't know if it makes me live longer. Nobody knows yet. But
Right.
I find there's a group of people medically that get so stubborn, it doesn't matter what the evidence is, they still want to poo-poo the multivitamin. But I think it's a good job to take it. Plus the insurance. That's what Harvard always says too. They said it gives you all these nutrients that if you don't get enough of, it gives you that extra level of insurance. It's not too much or too little, right?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
You got me on my soapbox again. I think it's brilliant you take a multi.
Well, great. I mean, I think I mean, you're the expert on this, not
I
me,
know.
but I think with supplements, you might get something out of it, right? You might get a sheen of a little bit of something. We don't really know, but maybe, and if it's not going to hurt you, then yeah.
Yeah.
So that's again, it's not a magic pill. It's like we'll talk about creatine and the buzz creatine has been getting, but none of this stuff is, but you
None of this
take
stuff
it
is magic.
because, yeah,
But
exactly.
you should type in Centrum and Cognitive Health.
I
You have to
will
understand
actually. I think
because
the one I take is, I think it's Trader Joe or something, but
it's pro
I'll,
but a lot of the Trader Joe's, a lot of the ones, the Sam's Club, a lot of the Costco,
right.
they're just these are outstanding.
Yeah.
All I make sure is they've got a quality control seal. I'm just saying
Right.
that this should become your comparative because this is
Okay.
what
Yeah,
we've
that
gone through all
exactly.
the clinical trials. It doesn't mean, ladies and gentlemen out there, that I'm endorsing it. I'm
Right,
saying
right.
it's your comparative, but this is the one that was used in the Cosmos trial. And the Cosmos trial was strong enough data that many doctors, including myself, thinks this needs to be now applied to clinical guidelines. It means that in the future, doctors need to be taught that when a patient says, I want some help in terms of improving my cognitive health, it helped with certain types of memory, but I want to slow my brain aging. What can I utilize that's cheap besides exercise, which is probably 10 times better? It's nice that we can say this. So all I'm trying to say is that after 35 years of doing this, to be able to see a commercial that's allowed to say that it may improve your cognitive health and it has evidence is mind blowing in my world. Because in the past, when people said that, they were getting away with a lot of times trickery. So the lesson of today is I just find it so interesting that people will spend $100 a month on a mind supplement, and lo and behold, along comes this thing that costs me $1 or 2 a month, and it's got the most evidence of anything else out there, and that's called a multivitamin. So
That's
the
amazing.
other thing is if let's say you are vegan, well, it's got enough B12 so you don't probably have to take a B12 supplement. Let's say your doctor told you to get more vitamin D. It's got enough vitamin D that you don't have to take a separate vitamin D supplement. So it's really like 3 or 4 pills in one, saving you a fortune.
One of the things that I think is so interesting as a journalist is that how supplements in general have just taken off. And I think it's the podcasters do an incredible job of shilling and marketing these things. And there is so much, money
Everywhere.
in this space. This is where the money is.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in hearing from you, like what you think this whole um, podcast sphere has done to the supplements market. It's almost like, people will believe anything. Um,
It's a billion
how
dollar
have
business.
how have you seen this space evolve?
I've seen the space evolve to, I've evolved and that space has evolved. And I've evolved into letting people know that I think the first rule of thumb is when you make something available over the counter, the ability to create a generic is almost immediate in almost every case. Meaning, I had a saying with the students, I still do now. It doesn't mean I go there a lot. It just kind of draws home the point that in general, the supplement business is big. I'm glad for one reason, because I do think a number of them are utilized throughout medicine and don't get their due. The downside is there's a lot of people getting also ripped off. However, one of the sayings I still tell the students to say to their patients is if it costs more than Costco, you may want to think twice, meaning that
Mm.
You don't have to go to Costco, but Costco supplements are cheap. And so you think, well, they must not be high quality control. Almost all the Costco supplements, or most of them, have a third party quality control seal on it. So they have great quality. So do
Mm,
a lot of other places. It's just they're able to get a cheaper price and sell them for cheaper. So I think it's not going to make me a lot of money. It's not going to get me on a supplement commercial. But we do have to tell people that you can find really high quality supplements for a low price. You don't have to spend a lot. And that's been the biggest problem I've seen with supplements taking off. People being convinced that something that costs thousands of dollars is somehow better than something that costs $5. Now,
yeah.
there's some exceptions to that, but I think the first rule of thumb is I want the cheapest price possible, but I also want the cleanest product possible. And then I also look for clinical evidence. And I have found throughout my 35-year career, the moment I could no longer endorse a product, if someone asked me to, is because there are a lot of very cheap, high quality products that have a lot of clinical evidence. You just got to go find them. So I think what breaks my heart sometimes still today with this movement, I'll talk to people that will spend thousands of dollars, sometimes a month or every 2 or 3 months. And I'm just going, look, if you're aware of the truth and you're still doing that, that's fine. But I think you should reevaluate that. I would
Hmm.
rather have someone spend a handful of dollars on their supplement and spend that thousands of dollars on a good piece of weightlifting equipment.
Yeah.
I think we're paying a price for people trying to expect so much from a bottle. I would rather have them save more money on a cheaper product that's high quality and then use that money for a trainer, for barbells, for hand weights.
Mhm.
My wife just got a Pilates machine. And I used to make fun of Pilates and her Pilates because I didn't know a damn thing about it. And then I get on the Pilates machine that she bought in our house. I'm like, so this is what this is about. I mean, it's really exciting, right? Now I'm
Mm,
a big fan of Pilates.
mm,
So it's a long answer to your short question, but I think the movement is positive, like anything positive, but it has a dark side. But I just wish people would follow the rules of if it costs more than Costco, just reevaluate. And
Interesting.
so, but it's all perception versus reality, right? I talked about when we were doing the sleep interview with Dr. Rice, I tried to explain that some of the biggest selling supplements in this country are actually prescription drugs in other countries. People want to play this game that it's natural, it's a supplement. A lot of the biggest selling supplements are actually have a prescription option. You take fish oil. Fish oil comes in multiple prescription options today in the
Mm,
United States and around the world. We talked about melatonin. Melatonin in the United States now has multiple prescription options. And in Europe, one of the biggest sellers for sleep is a prescription melatonin. So, this idea that supplements are different from prescriptions is more perception versus reality. I
mm.
think we should be highly objective and highly analytical when it comes to supplements and see what you individually qualify for. And can some of them cause problems? Of course they can. That's why you have to do your homework, but they should be individualized. That's what they do with drugs. I don't know why we don't do that with
Interesting.
supplements. So anyway,
And
look what you're
anyway.
doing. You're turning the tables. We're supposed to be talking about lift and you're lifting me up. Anyway,
Yeah.
but that's an important point. And you take calcium. And so what we tell people is if you get the recommended daily allowance of calcium, 1,000 to 1,200 a day, then most people don't need a pill. But if you have a tough time getting enough calcium daily, a calcium supplement is brilliant, right? And there's two types of calcium supplements, calcium carbonate. There's more than two types, but the two biggest sellers are calcium carbonate. That's what you see in Tums, and that's what you see in a lot of products. And then there's calcium citrate, which doesn't come with an increased risk of kidney stones and you can take it on an empty stomach. So it just depends what you're looking for in your calcium supplement. And
Hmm.
then what was your third one? Fish oil?
Fish oil.
So you probably take calcium. Do you take it for your bone health or do you take it for?
Bone. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty typical that they tell women to take calcium
Yeah,
and yeah.
yeah. And then fish oil is one of the top 3 or 5 in the country too. So fish oil is a classic example of a little's good, more is not necessarily better. In the studies that have looked at huge quantities of fish oil, it's come with side effect catches. But the
Mm.
studies like Harvard that used a gram or lower, it came with heart healthy benefits. So it just depends on, you know, I've never seen a supplement or a drug that in mega doses was helpful. It's almost all the time harmful. But then again, at the sweet spot, the moderate dose, that's where the evidence lies, right?
I thought fish oil was for brain health. Is
Yeah,
it
there's
brain
some
health or heart health or both?
Yeah, there's some, well, it lowers triglycerides. That's why it's offered as a prescription now. So you can get a
Uh,
prescription purified fish oil. If you go to your doctor and have super high triglycerides and you want to lower them and your statins aren't doing that or another option, it's a viable option to lower high triglycerides. The problem is if you take too much, where these are amounts you would never take, when you're taking 5 grams higher, in a couple trials in the past few years, there's been an increased risk of arrhythmias. And so now, if you look at the data, there's a concern of people megadosing for multiple reasons. Could there be a higher risk of arrhythmias? In some people, it causes a blood thinning effect when you get to
mhm.
those dosages. In some people, because they're too fatty acids, it can raise their bad cholesterol if they take too much of it. So it's kind of counterintuitive. If you take too much of fish oil, some people will have an increase in their bad cholesterol, even though their triglycerides will come down. So um, the big Harvard trial, which was called the Vital trial, if you ever want to look at it, the Vital trial used a gram or less. And the biggest benefit they found thus far, and that was the strongest study done, it was funded by your taxpayer dollars. The biggest find I think so far that surprised me, which I had to write on, was it seemed to lower the risk of autoimmune disease in people that had a history of autoimmune disease in the family. That's surprised me. And so that if you look at the Harvard doctors working in the autoimmune disease clinic, the lupus clinics, the other ones, they told me, and they say in the medical journals that they're starting to talk about that data in the families that have a high history of autoimmune disease diagnoses. That maybe
That's
they
fascinating. Any
so
insight as to
fast.
why?
Well, we think, it's an immune modulator, fish oil. It doesn't let the immune system go too high or too low. Um, so maybe it's that cruise control effect that it provides.
Amazing.
So I think I had to write in a major medical journal on this, and I said, in a lot of areas, fish oil has failed us. I called it fish oil flops. I thought that was cute,
That
flopping.
is cute. Yeah.
But in this autoimmune category, in patients with a family history of autoimmune disease, I would certainly talk to my rheumatologist about it. That's where, when I teach on supplements, I want people to start thinking, do I fit in some of these categories? Triglycerides. Does this help my cognitive health? Autoimmune. And so that's kind of the latest on it.
That's very interesting what you said about how, you know, um, the selection of supplements is something that could and should be personalized.
It
Why
should be
not?
personalized.
Yeah.
Every single supplement should be personalized, and then every 6 to 12 months, it should be reevaluated. And the
That's
reason you
amazing. People don't know
reevaluate,
this. Yeah.
well, you and I used to talk about this ad nauseum, I think, when we were doing interviews, but it was the crux of, the texts and all that. They should be individualized and they should be reevaluated every 6 months because nutrition has become a billion trillion dollar business,
Yeah.
meaning that there is huge reward today for adding large amounts of nutrients back into food, fortifying. So
Hmm.
you could wake up in 6 months and you are getting way too much calcium from your diet now because of what the industry is doing. So you no longer need the pill. Your questions, we should switch roles. Your timing is perfect. I went to Costco and bought almond milk for my wife. My wife wanted to try their almond milk.
Oh,
Okay.
interesting.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Cheap, 30 calories. I mean, I don't mind these plant-based milks. Some of them are good. Some of them come with their catches. That's a whole other talk. So I decided, oh my gosh, I had to talk with the residents a couple weeks ago. So I brought this as a demo. I said, I have never seen this before. This is new. If I look in the nutrition facts, 1 cup of their almond milk. Are you ready for this? Now, keep in mind that 1 cup of milk, if you're lucky, contains about 300 milligrams of calcium. 1 cup of their almond milk is 600 milligrams of calcium.
How interesting. Is it fortified?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now you do 1 or 2 cups of these, you're already at 1200 and you've had nothing else the whole day.
Yeah.
There's no reason for you to take a calcium supplement. I would have never seen this 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Never.
Interesting. Hmm.
So this is why your supplements need to be reevaluated,
Interesting. That is
right?
so interesting.
So I'm glad you find that because I mean this is the stuff that keeps me up at night, right?
Mm.
This has been my career. Centrum Silver, 10 years ago, I would have never found 1,000 IU of vitamin D in there. They had 400. Now they got 1,000. See, they're all upping their
They
game.
evolve.
They
Yeah, they're all
evolve.
upping the game.
Now, I'm a skeptic and say it's for the business, but whatever. That's okay. It's for the business. They want to make more money. But in doing so, that means you have to reevaluate.
Amazing. I love this. We're gravitating back towards our old journalist interviewee
I know, but
roles.
I'm sucking up your time. But
No, it's great.
no, let's talk about creatine.
All right.
All right,
So
here's what I got.
creatine, yeah,
I think just on the weightlifting demo and this creatine talk is enough for people to watch this video. I think so. And I'll tell you why, because this is so fascinating. I decided to make a few signs. People don't realize there's some great food sources of creatine. The foods that you like are high in creatine. So anything that comes animal-based, shellfish, anything that moves out there are food sources. Fish, shellfish, mussels are a good source of creatine. Get it? Mussels, mussels.
good.
I'll be here all week. Don't forget to tip your wait staff. All right. It's not in plants, but plants have the big three. And what's the big three? Your body makes creatine when it has three amino acids to utilize and manufacture. And I used to teach students by saying, remember that with the acronym GAME. G is for glycine, A is for arginine, and M is for methionine. And by the way, you mentioned methionine in your book, which there's not many good plant sources. You got to go animal for that. See, I read your book.
I'm impressed.
Thank you. So if you get those three amino acids from your diet, your liver, your pancreas, and your kidneys will make a decent amount of creatine. That's the important thing, which maybe is why vegans and vegetarians should be the ones really paying attention to creatine supplements, right? Because they're not getting meat sources and they're not getting a lot of those three amino acids in general. The creatine studies have been interesting. We're going to cover this a lot more at the fall meeting, but I'm just going to add this for you some more. It's just the biggest problems I've had with creatine supplementation is that it's one of the causes for the increase in a creatinine blood test. So even though it's a safe product, if someone's taking a bunch of creatine and they go see their doctor regularly to get blood tests of their kidney function, one of their measures of the kidney function, which you don't want too high, is called creatinine. It will raise the creatinine number, and that could scare your doctor. So everybody out there who's taking creatine, if you take a lot, 5, 10, especially 20 grams, it can increase your creatinine enough that it's not necessarily we're saying it's dangerous, but your doctor's going to go, what's going on here? This is a concerning increase. You could get an increase in your blood test from a large intake of cooked meats, fish, high intensity exercise. If you're a larger muscle mass, that could increase your creatinine and some medications. I don't want to waste your time here, but sometimes that blood test, your creatinine blood test, will come down when you stop the supplements, when you become a vegan, if you don't work out, and if you have liver disease. But the point of creatine is that it gets converted into this thing called creatinine, and your doctor measures that blood test. And if he or she doesn't know you're taking those supplements, you might scare that person.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I will tell the story of creatine in my bodybuilding and how
Yes,
I
please.
talked with you about it. So when I first started, so this was before anyone like was talking about creatine. I started working with this bodybuilding coach, and she said, I want you to start, when it became clear I was going to compete, she said, I want you to start taking creatine, a spoonful of creatine each day, about 5 milligrams you can put it in water, you can put it's flavorless, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I thought, ooh, this sounds kind of like, is this some weird thing? And I mentioned it to my mother, who said, don't take that.
Don't take
So then you and I happened to be talking for a story, and I said, I'm doing this, but yeah, I didn't know you well at that point. I said, can I ask you a question? I'm starting doing this bodybuilding thing, and creatine, I never heard of it. And you said to me, well, for one thing, you should know the research on it is chef's kiss, impeccable. It's not going to hurt you, but your body makes it anyway. So whether you get anything out of it, who knows? But you can take it with good confidence that it's been researched to the hilt. And, so So I've taken it. There's been periods when I've kind of forgotten to take it, but most when I remember to, I'll put a spoonful of it in my smoothie or in my workout water.
Yeah.
Um, whether it does anything though, I don't know. What's your opinion on it?
Well, if you ever go look, you can go look at any reputable website. They'll all repeat the same mantra. It's generally super safe. There's been
Right.
thousands of studies, right? Now, if you have a really bad kidney function, you probably shouldn't be on it, which makes sense because, if you're going to make your kidneys work a little harder, even though someone's not going to study people and kidney failure on it, it's a politically correct thing and probably the right thing to say. If you have significant kidney disease, you got to be careful with this stuff, anything that makes your kidneys work over time. But generally, the safety's been good. It's allowed in all the competitions, right? They don't ban it.
Oh yeah, no.
Last I checked, they allow it for bodybuilding, for the Olympics. It's all good.
Oh, it's a widely accepted supplement, like
Yeah, and so
magnesium.
that's what they say in all the websites, which is true. And the other thing they say is it's for explosive movements, people who are weightlifters, people who are sprinters, people that need that kind of fast, explosive movement. And I see that, I understand that. The problem is that nobody's ever done a really good study of, okay, I'm getting plenty of it from the diet, and now I take a bunch of it. Is it gonna give me people love to use all these little micro measurements. Is it going to make me feel, is there something clinically tangible? Is it going to be a dramatic change in my time, a dramatic change in my workout?
Right.
Well, that still has to be figured out. But I think it's a good product. Where I got interested in it, which you might find really fascinating, is they started to test it for people that have muscle wasting diseases. And there was a thought that it could slow the progression of Parkinson's disease.
Mm,
So the Michael J. Fox Foundation and the U.S. government uh, published in 2015 the LS1 study. The LS1 study was published in JAMA, and it's one of our top journals. This
right.
was done at 45 sites. It was a major clinical trial, and in the end, it didn't. Some
Interesting.
people will still tell you from that study that it helps some people with muscle wasting and have trouble with muscle and coordination, and maybe that's true. But it was my hope that that trial was going to shed new, wonderful light on creatine. Um, so I don't lose any sleep by somebody taking it. I just want them to know what the catches are. And the catches are it's pretty cheap, right? I think that's pretty
Yeah.
decent.
Yeah.
The catches are most people are who can continue it are doing 2 to 5 grams. They don't have to do these super duper dosages. Some people want to do 20 grams, but that can take your creatinine up. And I'll tell you, I just for today for you, I thought you'd find this interesting. In my business, where everyone's freaking out about creatine in terms of excitement now,
Right.
because it can cross the blood-brain barrier. Because the two sources that really use creatine a lot for energy are muscles and brain. So
Mm,
they did a pilot study at Kansas and just published it in Alzheimer's patients, and it seemed to help with cognition. It was a tiny study, but it's the first time someone's really looking at, hey, can this really help with my cognition and my memory?
mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
they're saying it can, and it should go to a bigger clinical trial. So creatine has not lost its steam.
Uh-huh.
They're
Uh-huh. I
studying it
heard
for
about this
brain.
Alzheimer's
Yeah. So
study. Yeah.
do I
So
take it?
it was a small
It
one.
was very small.
Uh-huh.
But here's where I find something so interesting. Everybody said it was it's as safe probably as placebo. So I did this for you because you and I spent so much time together on medical research. Look what increased. It didn't go to abnormal, but it jumped the creatinine, the blood test,
Oh, interesting. Huh.
right? So it increased from an average of 0.94 to 1.25. Let me just put that in perspective. Very small changes of 20% or 25%. Your doctor would go, whoa, what's that?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I found it interesting that the paper said it was perfectly safe. And I'm going, well, yeah, it was safe, but they should have really highlighted the fact that,
So what was the percent increase of the creatinine?
so,
In,
it was 0.94. The creatinine was 0.94 to 1.25. So it would be in that range.
okay, it would
It's a
be in
big
the
enough
range.
jump, right? It would be
Uh-huh.
a big enough jump that for women, for example, that have lower
Right.
values, it would
Mm-hmm.
scare their doctor, I think.
Uh-huh. Very interesting.
So, but
Hey,
that's,
can I ask you, what is your view on supplements in gummy form, which is something that's become
didn't
increasingly
we do that?
popular?
I think we did that article.
We didn't
We
actually.
did it?
We
I
didn't.
thought we did.
And I find the gummy form easier to take than a capsule.
Yeah,
Sometimes the capsule can be big, but I've been told that they can be lesser quality when they're in
that's right.
gummy form. Is that right?
That's right. So I always like it when a gummy product has been subject to third-party quality control.
Uh-huh.
NSF. In your game, there's a thing called NSF for sport. A lot of athletes use any product that says NSF on it. The collagen you and I used to talk about that said NSF, we would recommend that if you were going to take collagen. It just means it's been tested, it's reliable, what it says.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
USP is another reliable. UL. There's one in Canada called ISURA, ISURA. If you just look and you ask the company, how do I know that what you're advertising is actually what's in it? If they can prove it, then it's a decent form. The biggest problem I had besides that was the sugar content. Some of the gummy vitamins,
Yeah.
what I said, I thought it was the Wall Street Journal. Oh, maybe it was Time. I said, people got mad when I said it. I said, it's like for your kids, it's like every day is Halloween. That's what I said.
Right. That's great. I'm sure the
So
reporter ate that up.
they did. And so what I always say is check the caloric content and the sugar content. But you know what? There are a lot of elderly people that they can only take small pills, they can only take gummies. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey,
No.
whatever
Right.
floats your boat as long as you do your homework.
Right.
Here's what I've seen in 2025 so far in weightlifting. And it's really a disappointing year for weightlifting, in my opinion. So I think you should have to defend this.
Mm-hmm.
This is all I found from the data in weightlifting. Let's see. I put it in here. I'm going to read you my list. It
Mm-hmm.
seems to help you live longer, seems to help you with balance, reduces your risk of falls, helps you with coordination, reduces your risk of fractures, improves your blood sugar, reduces insulin resistance, improves your overall muscle development and skeletal health. You use the word on the show, it helps keep you more, I think it was you in the book, maybe it increases your chance of self-sufficiency, being self-sufficient, taking care of yourself. It improves your cardiovascular health. It reduces pain because you're building up muscle around the joint. That's what it did for me, so I can run again. And it seems to help with mental health, including stress, depression, anxiety. And here's the one that when I talk about them in interviews, I'm always scared to talk about it. But before I do, also, almost all the side effects of cancer treatment that we talk about on this channel is helped through weightlifting, whether that's bone loss, falls, fractures, cognitive, energy, fatigue, metabolism, sexual, sleep. So that's the only thing that weightlifting does for you. So you should be disappointed. From A to
Mm-hmm.
Z, I just read you the list of what weightlifting does for you. And so I hope you're embarrassed. It doesn't really do that much.
I mean, if we could bottle the stuff as a supplement, right? So it is going to help you live a longer and stronger life. There is nothing better. The studies have been done on memory retention. One of my favorite studies, a deck of playing cards on a population that did weightlifting only. One group did weightlifting plus cardio, and then there was a control group. And when the subjects were asked to remember what was on the cards, it was the weightlifting only group, even more than the weightlifting plus cardio group,
Hmm.
that remembered the most, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
Depression, particularly with among subjects who were very clinically depressed, weightlifting helped. There's just been countless. And from my own experience, the reason I wrote the book was just this sample size of one. The impact that it had on my life was so profound. I was in my life having such a hard time. And when I started this journey of going to the gym in the afternoon, lifting weights, coming back, I would have this, it was like I was a brand new person. I would have this rush of ideas. I could hear it in my voice when I interviewed people. Confidence came out, more productive. I ended up getting a raise. I started wearing lipstick again. I created a dating profile. I met my future partner. It was just like my life completely changed due to strength training. And, particular for men and women, I think, but particularly for women, I think we've been conditioned to gravitate towards becoming less, weight loss, exercise as a way of reducing ourselves. And the wonderful thing about, you know, my weightlifting experience was it was all about the moreness of muscle, right? Building and fueling yourself to optimize performance, to make more of yourself was such a it was so delicious to me, and it and different, and particularly for bone. Talking about calcium for bone, muscle is the ultimate protector. It's the cushion of
Yeah.
bone, and it is on a cellular level something strength training helps build bone. So there's nothing better you can do, especially for women, for who are more susceptible to osteoporosis, osteopenia. Strength training is something that will help you, in your quality of life. Bring those bags of groceries in, help you lift a grandchild. I think I read somewhere that falls are the number one reason that elderly people end up in hospitals. So anything you can do to help protect bone. So, whether it's for mental benefits or longevity benefits, strength training is the best thing you can do for yourself. So,
Yeah, well put. The other ones I pulled for today's was there was a huge review of randomized control trials in the British Medical Journal just recently. There was 8 studies, and it suggests exercise, including weightlifting, helps some people with long COVID.
mm,
I thought that was interesting. I thought you'd find this interesting.
you remember I had long COVID.
Oh,
I
you
don't know.
did.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And
it
that
went
made,
away. And maybe it was due to, there you go.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's a pretty solid review of all the data. The one I told you I don't like to talk about because it's a weird space to go into. You get nervous on the internet talking about it, but you got to talk about it. Is first of all, there's a higher rate for whatever reason. I have theories. There's a higher rate of suicide in female physicians. So that's JAMA just JAMA published
Wow.
JAMA psychiatry. So what does that mean? It's just I think not just in females, but in adolescents, you see this high rate of suicidal ideation. And I always kind of thought, oh, it's a tough world to live in. I understand it's tough out there. It's like medicine and all these professions. Being a female, I understand that. But then I started to look, where are the solutions? Could they lie in some of these places? And then I looked at every meta-analysis on suicidal ideation behaviors and a culmination of all the data in all the major journals from 23 to 25 and among adolescents and among adults. And they all came to the same conclusion. This one identified 17 randomized controlled trials. And, so these are a large number of controlled trials, and they all come with the same conclusion that exercise either reduced suicide attempts and or suicidal ideation. People who did resistance training and aerobic training. And I'm going, look, nobody's trying to suggest that this is the solution to an epidemic problem, but it's kind of like COVID. Why are we talking? I mean, I don't mind talking about the vaccines and all these things, but why didn't we talk about exercise as a possible solution? Why aren't we talking about suicidal ideation and exercise as a possible way to mitigate it
Hmm.
in the higher risk people? And it goes back to the book you mentioned. I think in the mental health category, weightlifting doesn't get its due in the uncomfortable to talk about subjects.
Oh, I love that so much. I love that so much. Well, you know, it goes hand in hand with the vast, mental health benefits of weightlifting.
Exactly.
And the research is there. Talking about it in terms of suicide mitigation prevention, I think is a great opportunity. And
Exactly.
I hope somebody hears this and
Well, I think people, well, I'm not trying to be too strange about it, but I think this is the power of this stuff. You reach people that sometimes you could consider non-reachable. It's what speaks
so
to them.
true.
'Cause I can tell you when I played sport in college and I played in high school my whole life, man, this is what kept me out of the dark spaces.
Mm,
Well, that and my
yeah.
faith, but I just,
And got
everybody,
me out of the dark spaces
yeah,
too.
yeah. And whenever
Yeah.
I still go back there in this day and age, and we all have reasons to go back there. This morning when I went for my run and my lift, it just gets me the hell out of there. There's no better way
Yeah.
to say it.
Well, we spend a lot of time up here, in our minds and on our screens. And the wonderful thing about uh, my strength training is it gets me into my body, gets me out of my head. And I think it's really, you know, physical activity in any way, shape, or form is so important for that reason. We get disconnected, in this
Absolutely.
space. We get disconnected from ourselves in that way.
My SPBs are this. Before you start this demo and how we're going to do this for the audience, and let me know if I missed something. Um, By the way, I have all these funny things here. I had tuna fish yesterday, and I looked because of you. I looked up the protein amount, and it was 32 grams
15.
on this can I ate. I'm like, I just had 32 grams on
Wow.
a piece of fish. Anyway,
That
you
must have
got me.
been a large can of tuna fish because,
It was
oh,
it
well, I
was
guess it was about, I would have guessed 20 grams. Was it a standard can of tuna or a little bit
it,
larger?
it was a little bit larger,
Yeah.
exactly. But
Yeah.
I still because some of them at these some of these cheap places, whether it's Costco or these places, they're selling like slightly larger can. And I just thought, wait, I'm going to talk to Ann. I wonder how much protein I'm getting here. I'm going 30 some grams. This is pretty impressive.
I actually love, they sell them in pouches now.
Yes.
And I think they are so fantastic. Some of these flavored pouches of tuna fish, it's just a really, I keep them in my purse or in the car. It's just a
Yeah.
really quick way to get, and sometimes they come with a little fork in the
Yeah,
pouch.
that's great, isn't
Highly
it?
recommend. Yeah.
That's a really smart. That's exactly. I mean, some of these changes are really brilliant. SBP, before we talk about the demo, do you have anything to say or do you want to show anything about stretching? Do you stretch before lifting or do you go right into it?
I do. I do. I do some feel good stretches. My little weird little habit is at my gym, they have a sauna, which right now it's summer. It's like kind of, but especially in the colder months, it's like my great little treat to myself to
Wow.
go into that hot sauna.
Yeah.
And I just, I put on some meditative music in my headphones and I do a series of stretches and really I don't overthink it. It's whatever feels good and gets my old bones moving. And sometimes there's another woman in there or sometimes people are like, can I join you? I'll say sure and I'll start
Yeah.
doing stretches. But 5 to 8 minutes of stretches
That's
and
all.
I also do like a little bit of warm up. So I'll pick any of those cardio machines, maybe a step mill or whatever, do 8 minutes of just to kind of get the heart moving. And then I go into my lifts.
Nice.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's stretching before lifting. The other thing I hear a lot about is breathing. You can show us. I mean, I don't, oh, this is all I know. You're not supposed to be, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're not supposed to be holding your breath the whole time because that creates too much internal
Yes.
pressure. Now you're looking at the increased risk of injuries internally.
Yes.
So the other three things are stretching, breathing, and posture. You can show us the posture if you want during the workout, but do you have anything to say about breathing? Because I go to these gyms and some of these guys are lifting these huge weights and they're just holding their breath the whole time and they're making this noise and I'm going, that can't be good.
Yeah, I think, especially for people who are starting, they feel like they're really focused on the lift at hand and they forget to breathe. Just make sure to keep the breath moving. Don't hold your breath. Keep it
Thank you.
moving throughout the exercises. I'm glad you brought that up.
No, that's an important point, not to hold your breath and breathe through the exercise. Okay. Did I miss asking about something? I had a whole other list, but that would take another 3 hours. So, is there anything you want to say about the book or anything else before we try the demo? Because you could think about it for a sec because this is
Yeah, I'm gonna
the
grab I'm looking at the weight from across the table. The only other, what do you got there,
I said
Rick?
resistance exercise demo city with AMC as the mayor. Moyad is her favorite student. This is the first time ever attempted in the history of our
Oh,
organization. Nobody's ever,
fantastic.
nobody's ever during a conference tried to show us how to work, how to lift some basic weights.
I love that. I'm so
So,
honored. I was going to say one more thing, Mark,
yes,
which is there's a misconception if you're going to go to a gym, for instance, and start lifting weights, is to, do your cardio, a big cardio exercise first. If you want to warm up 3 to 5 minutes of cardio, or 5 to 8 minutes, it's fine. But if you're combining big cardio, 30 minutes on the Stairmaster or whatever with your weightlifting, do it after. Expend your big energy in your lifting. That's where you're going to get you want to save the big energy to get the most out of your lifting sessions, and then the cardio can come after. Don't waste your energy on the cardio first and then do the lifts. You'll get so much more out of your session by doing the lifting first. Okay.
and so and what do you say to the person that says, look, I don't have that much time. I just want to do my lifting, then my cardio. a couple days a week. I mean, does it really matter? I hear from trainers all the time that no, you got to take 2 or 3 days off during the week. I mean, what's your stance, your advice to people on who just
Yeah.
want to get their cardio and weightlifting in? Do you recommend 2 or 3 times a week? Do you got to
Yeah,
space it
three
out?
times a week is
Three
great to
times.
aim
Good enough.
for, and you don't have to do like a hour-long session in the gym or what we're going to talk about is 30 minutes or less. I like to think in terms of threes. So pick 3 exercises, 3 sets of 10 repetitions, perform 3 times a week, 30 minutes or less, and you can get a lot done. And if you're going to ask me pick three, how can I think about which 3 exercise to pick?
Yeah.
Um, think about a push exercise. So
Okay.
that'll work your chest, a pull exercise for your back muscles, and then a leg exercise. So
So getting upper and lower body on the same
yeah,
session. Yeah, I like
yeah,
that. Okay.
yeah.
A couple times a week, like 3 times a week, and 30 minutes or less. And you're gonna show us, are you gonna show us those kind of exercises now?
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
it.
Let's do
Are
it.
you ready? If you're at
Yeah, I
home,
took
you
my
don't
jacket
even
off. I was wondering why my face was beet red, and I'm going, well, first it was when you embarrassed me at the beginning, and second of all, because I had a jacket on. All right, I'm ready if you're ready, but I'm gonna watch
Okay.
and figure out what the heck you're doing.
So for our push exercise, and you can do this from home, I have these are 5 pound dumbbells, but really if you don't have dumbbells around, look in your kitchen cupboard. This is a can of Progresso chicken noodle soup. I measured as about 1.5 pounds. This is a jar of spaghetti sauce, which I measured at 2 pounds. You can grab anything that's a weight.
Okay.
This is a little bit heavier at a 5 pound weight, but whatever you've got. So this is an overhead press. So we're gonna do 10 of these. And this is great for your upper back, your shoulders, especially your bicep. And you can do one arm at a time, or you can do both at the same time.
Do you do them sitting or standing, or does it
This
matter?
is done seated. Make sure your
Oh,
feet are planted on the ground.
it is. Okay.
Yeah,
I saw
and
I
you're
only have
sitting
one and
up
you have two.
nice and high. And that's it. Aim for 10 of those.
Okay.
And I feel better already. I don't know about you. It
So
feels
you do
great.
10 in the chair. Oh, okay. That's
Yeah, you
awesome.
can do it standing also.
No, but I like the chair. Okay.
Yeah, you can
All
totally
right.
do it seated in a chair, actually.
Okay. So that's called the overhead. Now
So
remember,
that's an
for
over.
for everybody watching, these are going to be posted on the channel.
Now for our pull exercise, I've got a resistance band like this. Got
Okay.
different variations all over the house. They're super cheap to buy online, there's this version too. Um, or if you don't have one, you can even use a towel.
Okay.
I am going to loop this over my foot, my or both feet. And I don't know if you can see me, but I'm going to pull back
Ah,
like this.
you're doing that with your foot at the other end of it.
Exactly.
So you're
It's
just
looped
pulling
over.
like that.
And I'm
Okay.
just pulling. And I'm
Good.
seated in the exact same spot. And I've just now gotten 2 awesome exercises in that will help improve my strength.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. So how do you,
And
so
I
when
didn't
you
even,
want to, so when you want to do a pull with the dumbbells, like what do you call these things? Hand weights. I don't know, whatever you call it.
yeah, you can actually, if you want to use a hand weight and you can do a seated row.
Okay.
So
What's that?
now I'm going to use the same chair.
Okay.
Um, and I'm raising the
Ah,
dumbbell to my armpit. And I've got
ah,
my left, uh, I'm leaned over. I've got my left leg and my left arm anchored down on this bench. And I'm rowing like this and do the same with the
so you
other
just
arm.
switch sides. I see.
Yep,
So that's the pull portion.
that's the pull.
So that's
And
what,
then,
okay, so we do the push, then we did the pull, and
mhm.
that was okay. And then the last but not least, because you have a couple exercises within those islands. So one island is the push, you got a bunch of there. Then you got a couple exercises with the pull. And now the last island is legs and core.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a leg exercise, and here I can, you don't even actually need, I'm gonna do a leg extension. And this is a kicking motion. I'm seated and I'm just slowly kicking up my leg. And this is working my quadricep leg extension. Now, if you're at the gym, you can do this with a machine.
Right.
But you don't need to. You don't need any weight at all. If you want to put a weight, I'm going to squeeze the dumbbell in between my 2 feet and try to raise. That makes it more challenging.
That makes it really hard.
Yeah.
So that's got to be a lightweight.
It's a lightweight. Yeah.
So you're saying you put that by your ankles?
Yeah, you squeeze that weight in between your.
And then you try to lift both of those. And then what if you're not using
You can even try it with the band, doing the leg extension with it gives me a little bit of resistance.
So you're putting the band below the foot and then trying to lift your leg up.
Exactly.
You're still doing this from a seated position,
Still from the seated position, yeah. Those are 3 exercises. Let's not complicate things.
Yeah.
But you can do these in a circuit and then start right back from that first one. And, maybe that gets done in 10, 15 minutes. And you haven't left the kitchen, you haven't left the house, and you've done something incredible for yourself. And I guarantee, I feel better already. I don't know about you, but you will feel so much better in terms of your mental and spiritual self.
Well, part of the reason too is you're talking to me. I mean, it's like a big deal.
Let's be honest.
Right? So, okay, so can I ask you one more thing then?
Yeah.
So can you just repeat? Because I think everybody watching this should invest not only in soup cans, but resistance bands, but they should go out. I mean, they sell these at Target now. They sell these
Marshalls, TJ Maxx. Yeah.
TJ Maxx. Can you one more time through the push, pull, and legs and core with just if I've got one of these?
Yep.
I think a lot of people in our audience actually owns one of these things.
Yeah, I think most people have them at home.
Yeah. So the push again is
the push is the
both arms.
Yeah.
So you do single and then you do double, or you just go from,
either or. You can do, I think, you can do one at a time, or you can do both at the same time. Doesn't make a difference.
And then what do you recommend? Let's say you're doing this and after a few weeks, this just becomes really easy. Do you recommend going up a pound or 2, or do you recommend?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. The name of the game is to push your muscles to fatigue.
Okay.
And by fatigue, I like to think of it as, I think we know what fatiguing your muscles feels like. It doesn't have to feel like hell on earth, but it should feel like, oof, I'm getting, on a scale from 1 to 10, it should feel like you're hitting an 8 or a 9.
Okay.
So if you're not getting that from 10 repetitions, keep going.
Go to 20.
Shoot for 20 until you're feeling like you're hitting that 8 or 9 is what you want to aim for.
That makes sense. And then when the chair where you had your knee down and you were pulling up, that was the pull.
It's called a row. Yeah.
It's called a row. And then the last island, legs and core. So you recommend getting a really low weight of this and then putting it between your ankles or your legs and then lifting.
Yep.
And when you're done with 1 rep of 10, is that enough several times a week? Or do you recommend taking a couple minutes and then doing another rep of 10 with the same weight, or is 1 enough?
Ultimately, you should be doing 3 sets of 10 repetitions for each of those exercises.
Oh, okay. So you want 3 reps, 3
sets of 10 repetitions.
With how much break in between?
No, well, you take a little breather, but the idea with the circuit is to keep it moving. Yeah.
That's where you start to feel the fatigue.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're saying go in from push to pull to legs and core all in one motion.
Exactly. So you do the 1 set of that first exercise, then move into the other set of the second exercise, then the third set of and then after you've completed those 3 sets, And you
Yes.
take a break, maybe you take a 20-second breather, then start again with the first exercise.
So I'm doing push, pull, legs, core.
Exactly.
So you're saying I do a set, push, pull, legs, core, and repeat.
Yeah.
Then repeat again, and I'm done for the day.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what takes the time. And you find that that holds muscle development, strength, as well as muscle size done if you do it 3 times a week.
3 times a week. Yeah.
Can it be like just, can it just be really? I
Yeah.
mean, I don't look, I'm talking about from a science standpoint. Everything what you're saying is exactly right, but I've never thought about even just doing it sitting on my gluteus maximus or just in these, just, using this and I'm good.
Hey, I mean, if it feels too easy,
Yeah.
do more.
Yeah.
But the idea is to like it shouldn't feel like a chore, right? It should bring some joy to your life. Not everything has to be make yourself miserable to work. Like make it something you look forward to and just because you're hitting that muscle fatigue, it doesn't mean it has to be miserable. I associate it as like a kind of a good feeling.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
what if I just want to do this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday? Those are my 3 days because I'm too busy Monday through Thursday.
Great. Yeah, you can do that.
So it's really about just putting the time in.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's
Ideally, I would give a space of a day in between
okay, ideally.
because then you're letting your muscles rest. In order for muscle, quote unquote, hypertrophy to take
Yeah.
place, for muscles to get bigger, they need a period of rest. But you could one way around that is you could work one set of muscle groups on your Friday, then make the Saturday your leg day, and then make Sunday one of your push pull days.
Yeah.
So
I
you're
like
giving the one muscle group a rest.
I see. I like that breakdown that you're going to do a push exercise, you're going to do a pull exercise and a leg and core because that's covering you from head to toe.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
covering all your major muscle groups, right? I mean, the ones that
Mm-hmm.
don't get much attention. Back, front, bicep, tricep, quads, hamstrings. That's cool. So that's the
And
one.
actually, I think it's in chapter 7 of my book. I have to check, but
Okay.
it's the chapter called Building Your Routine. And it kind of takes you through how you can set up your week, your days of the week with those movements. And then there's a
Um,
section on ones you can do with just body weight, even.
I found that to be the chapter I read twice, and
Oh,
that's exactly building your routine. You have my top 10 body weight strength movements,
mm-hmm.
uh, and it goes through push-ups, squats, lunges, and explains what they are: planks, frog pumps, donkey kicks, monster walks, dead bugs. Um, that was the one I flagged. I flagged my top 10 body weight strength movements, and then I underlined all those, and then the equipment that you can use for those. So from all different types of weights to the straps to Velcro weights. So yeah, that's funny that you say that part because that was the part I flagged with one of my cards.
I spoke with a CEO of a menopause company, really wonderful woman, and she told me that she's very busy, right, running a company, starting a company and running it. She keeps these like sets of dumbbells in different corners of her house, you know,
Yeah,
so that when she walks by, she's reminded, okay, I'm going to do some 3 sets of 10 of something right now.
yeah,
And so she think of it as like a workout snack almost. And I thought that was so genius, you
that
know.
is,
You could do that with a kettlebell. I don't know if you know what that is, but
yeah.
that's another great kind of weight to have. You can tuck these things in different corners of your house when you're bringing laundry from room to room. For instance, you see your kettlebell or your dumbbells and do like one of your push pull exercise or any one of those exercises from the chapter.
I like that a lot. I like
Yeah.
that a lot. In fact, man, we covered a lot of stuff here. I don't want to rob the book of its credibility here, but we didn't touch upon so many of the different exercises, but that's what people can purchase the book for. And remember what I said about your book. I said it's an inspiration for the ages and for all ages. So, with that in mind, when are you going to let your daughter start lifting?
So I have a little basement set up. I have an incline bench, a squat rack, a barbell, so when you start building up from just your dumbbells, you can get a few more toys and stick them in the basement or garage or what have you.
Yeah.
And the girls, it's great. They've seen my crazy bodybuilding journey and they're so proud of mom, and I love that they've seen their mom develop into someone strong. And once in a while, I'm not going to say all the time, but once in a while they'll come down and they'll start imitating me with some movements, and it doesn't last very long, but I think it's great that they don't think anything of it and want to get involved a little bit. Hopefully it'll be more as they get older, but the oldest one is 14 now and the little one is 10.
Yeah, that's a good time, right? A good time to at least be exposed to
Yeah.
it. Not necessarily start it, but be exposed.
Yeah.
Wow. Is there anything you wanted me to ask you today that I didn't cover? I mean, I had a ton of stuff, but that'll be for next time. You
I
were
sort of felt like we went right back to old times. No, that was great. Um,
the only time I haven't worn a suit. I got my workout top, my sweatpants. Thank God I didn't have to wear a suit and tie. That's all.
I owe you a little video or something on
Yes.
the smoothie.
Yes. So
Okay.
what
Do
we
you want me to
agreed,
do that as a video for you?
you could do it as a video would be great. I could do it as a video with a write-up,
A little,
whatever's
okay.
easiest for you. So what we agreed on today is your go-to smoothie, which I found to be so fascinating, so nutritious, so high protein. Uh, then you gave us the little quick how to use the push pull and your back, work on your back, all those areas. And then there's another thing that I know, Katie Kirk, there's a write up of push pull and a video. We're going to try to access that. That's yours. So,
Yeah.
what I want to make sure the audience know, it wasn't just about me and AMC just catching up on old times. We made sure that all the little things that she's developing right now, as the book's getting attention, is also going to be accessible for us. And you agreed to that, thank goodness. So yes, we want all of that.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yes, and I do want to say, okay, how can I not sound like an Oscar speech now and cheesy? You and I have had a great run. I mean, I really appreciate what you do. I hope it continues. Anything I could do to help get this word out that people need to incorporate resistance activity in their life to feel stronger mentally and physically, and for me, spiritually. And I appreciate you taking a chance and coming on here because this is not our typical guest, but these are the kind of guests that we need more of to reach more people and to excite more people about lifestyle.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's my way of saying thanks for being you.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. This is the kind of message that will improve people's lives and improve their health. And, I think as a population, we are so focused on taking care of others, first. And we forget that, taking care of yourself is like the oxygen mask that you have to put on yourself in order to be able to take care of others. And just, it doesn't have to be hours a day, just 30 minutes or less. Just do something so good for yourself so that you can be strong, be well taken care of, and ultimately be able to take care of someone else is so important.
Yeah. And then the last thing I would say, since we're asking for all this free stuff from you, which makes me happy, I love free stuff. It's my favorite four-letter word. Uh, the other thing I think, which was really cool, which I saw on the CBS show, is I think when you send the recipe and the video and all that people can do at home, you should send a couple of pictures from the competition that I saw on CBS. I mean, those are mind-blowing that you are because you're doing this on your own. I know you work with people, but you were this reporter who developed this body, this muscular body, this strength, and the photos are really sort of shocking, the development, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's easy for all of us to take it for granted, but if you
Well, it
would,
was such a different
it's
world. It
such a
was like
different world.
I was so immersed in the world of you know, newspapering and kind of deadlines and interviews and Ann Taylor pantsuits, and I kind of ended up in this crazy world of, fake tans and big muscles and big hair and fake nails and posing on a stage. I mean, it was so unlike me,
Right.
but I met people I wouldn't have met before. It's the parking lots of these competitions are a crazy mix of, red state and blue state bumper stickers and you know, everyone in between. And so,
Oh,
great fun, and I still enjoy competing, and I enjoy kind of exploring, making more of myself in every way. So it's been a fun ride.
yeah. So if you don't mind, I mean, it's not easy being a pro bodybuilder. I mean,
It's not
dear
easy.
Lord. So you should
Um,
send, because we're kind of talking here, but people can see. I mean, I could even see in the CPS morning show your biceps. I was like, what? Where did those come from?
yeah,
And so
yeah,
it makes sense to me before you leave that, you're doing all this investigative reporting and you're doing all these health topics, and you realize, wait a second, maybe I could be the story here. I've got enough knowledge and enough background that I can be the story. I mean, because you're always reporting for other people and on their stuff. So I
yeah.
always I always found that transition to be really interesting. So even with Alex, who runs our PCRI, we're moving her into investigative reporting. So she's kind of coming that direction because today a lot of these topics, if you spend the time and you have an objective mind, you can do great things. And I just find the transition what you did made so much sense to me, even though you think it's weird, you know?
No, yeah, no,
So,
it's relatable. And I
yeah,
think, as people, we all hit hard times in our lives, right?
right.
And life is not easy. We face death, we face illness, we face divorce, and um, getting yourself out of it, and transitioning like a butterfly into something new is a story I think we can all kind of relate to. And, if you're there and in the middle of it, I just want people to know that, it's not the end of the story. There's always something on the other side, and don't despair. And grab a set of weights and get out of your mind and get into your body. And I think you will be surprised at what it can do for you as it did for me.
Of course, I got so caught up in talking with you, I forgot everybody gets a gift. We forgot to give you your gift.
Oh, you
So what do
know.
you give the person that has everything? You give them a puppy? No, I think she's got a dog. I don't know. New car? It's not in our budget. Ah, we figured it out. So actually, a bunch of us talked like, what would be the ultimate gift that she would never forget that she did this show? And we were looking online, and whammo, this goes so well with the demo that you just did. I guarantee you, no one's ever given you this. Can you show Peter the present that's going to be sent to her house? It's called Heavy. It's the new coffee cup that weighs 5 pounds. So you
That
see
is
that isn't that
hilarious.
incredible? And they're on back order right now. And they have one that weighs 22 and one that weighs 5. And we got you the 5 pounder. It's also a good gag gift. And it's got a regular handle like you would have in a dumbbell. And that one's 5 pounds. The company's called Heavy. I had never heard of it before. And that's going to be your coffee cup. And it will remind everyone that you lift weights and you're a pro bodybuilder.
That is the most hysterical thing I have ever seen. They really made it look like, one of those like one of those gadgets in the gym, and the
Exactly.
handle. It's unbelievable.
Exactly. And the reviews are through the roof. And I thought, we've got to get that for her. So that's going to be sent to your home address.
I
And
mean, I think we need to at some point retake the little video I did with you with one of those coffee cups. I mean, that's
yes,
maybe
when
next
you
year.
when you get it and put coffee in it, then just do a quick video and send it to us and we'll put it on the site.
It's a deal.
I mean,
That's great.
anyway, that's like, I know, sorry, it's not a puppy, but man, I thought you'd love that.
Fantastic.
No one's going to steal it. It's too heavy if they try to give it away.
Exactly.
What a brilliant invention. So anyway,
That's
thank you
adorable.
again.
Well,
There's your
thank you.
gift.
That's just adorable. Thank you.